poem's called The Gardener, and it's probably the most important poem I've written. So actually in the book that's a picture of me and a painting of me and my parents. Unfortunately, I don't really have many pictures of myself and my parents. They split up when I was quite young, but I was lucky to do a fancy gig in the National Concert Hall a couple of years ago, and my dad was... I got a friend of mine to essentially chat to my dad and keep him in one place while a photographer was lurking nearby. And then I got my mum and brought her across. Neither of them knew, but I kind of got this photo of the three of us, and then I gave it to my cousin Karen to paint it. So the painting's actually quite big. It's yay high off the ground, and I just put it in the book here. This poem. So I'm 37 now, but I wrote this poem when I was 28. It kind of changed the relationship with my mum, redefined it a bit. She's religious. I'm not particularly sort of live as my way of going about life, but I don't see her often enough. So sometimes I go to church with her, and she loves jazz music. So we go to church, we go to the jazz gig, we have a bite to eat, and then go our separate ways. So one day when she was dropping me back home to where I used to live, in the car, she said to me, I pretend to be happy. And it's kind of like, it was like a lightning bolt going through me, really. And we had this conversation, a difficult conversation to have. And later on that evening, I wrote this poem in probably about 15 minutes. So different process to the poem that I read about Dublin, where I did a lot of research and a lot of editing. This one sort of just flowed out of me, but there was maybe a lot of pent-up emotion and history there to come out in it. And she said something to me as well a couple of years ago that I probably need to write about and redefine a relationship a little bit more again. Sometimes the only person I probably argue with is my mum, in truth, and I don't mean to laugh about that, but it's sad. It's a sad truth. And one day in the house over a cup of tea, she says, if I can't tell you these things, who can I tell them to? And that line was very true and fair and carried a lot of weight. And I sometimes think about that while I read the poem. So anyway, it goes like this. She turned to me and said, "Do you think I'm happy?" And I heard a question that I didn't want to hear. I knew the answer. I've listened to the cry, but to face it made me uneasy. But I felt the bravery. I felt the realness in the moment. So I answered, you see. She's a gardener who has great plans, but works with what she's got. She loves creation, sees beauty and wants to share it with you. Understands the cruelty of nature, and yet it fills you with wonder. Have you tried her rhubarb fresh from Granny's garden? You should. Maybe there are prettier roses, but she'd rather be a cooking apple, or better yet, a gooseberry. Her hands are worn, the flesh loosened by age. She held my hand in church today for the first time in too long. Her eyes are still young, still life to be lived. This Joe Bangles is not condemned when there is breath left. Still seeking that happiness. God love her. People before profit, she says. A modern-day Guevara or Connolly as a nation lets her down, working 34 years in a job, draining away her very essence for what? To feed me, educate me, clothe me, but not stopping there. I remember she took me to Mrs. Prendergast near Butlins when we couldn't afford to go to Butlins. Caravanning in Roundwood with the takeaway Chinese, the Isle of Man, the cinema, jazz after church every Sunday, as we did today, 28 years on. Taught me to notice the sunset, her bondage, a sick child and a broken marriage, all this, and I don't know how to speak to her. I always want to hug her, and I don't know how. So a veiled kiss laced with courtesy will do. She's been learning to stop living inside her own head, gets up, goes out, half the battle. No panic attacks for a while, still manic, but calmer now, still pretending, still xenophobic, homophobic, not meaning to be. Lost marbles down gutters like dreams. The anger, it's fresher though. built up over years of false dawns and mistrust, reduced expectations, frustrations, wants contentment now. Quiet. Yes, quiet. Peace. Or perhaps bird song in her garden where she will grow. Apples, pears, spuds, raspberries, strawberries and gooseberries. Watch them bloom again and return to the soil, but not before she has lived a life deserving. My mother told me today she pretends to be happy. What do you say to that? Let's watch her flower now, I say, and bring her some water. I wrote that poem 9 years ago. For me, poetry is very much an oral art form. So my friend, Enda Riley, helped me to record that and gave it to her on a CD, and ran away. I didn't know how she'd take it, as it were. And but yeah, it was a healing thing to share that with her. And even laying it out in the book, I struggle with that maybe, and it turns out I'm dyslexic, so I found that out when I was 31 in second year. I went back to college as a mature student in IDT to do a degree in English Media and Cultural Studies, and the sheer volume of reading, I struggled with that, so I found out in the second year that I'm dyslexic. That's probably why I like to read my poems aloud, and I like to listen, and that was my way into poetry, was going to open mics and listening to music and listening to different bands and getting their CD covers at home and going through all the lyrics. That was my way into poetry, maybe not the traditional route, as it were, but it's nice to finally have these books and people can interpret them in their own ways. There was a lovely video that went for that poem as well, as it happens. My friend Simon Daniels was very kind to make that, and the lady in the video is his mother, Rita Quinn, and unfortunately she passed away the other year. Which is a sad thing, but it's also nice to have that moment captured. And it's a very moving video. If you get a chance to have a look at it online, obviously it's called The Gardener. You'll find it there.